You're on Pulse 94.1, speaking live through word and song with Pat. Our special guest is Pastor Rick Prosser, all the way from Newcastle. Thanks for joining us, Rick.
Very good, Pat. Great to be here. Welcome to the listeners. Fantastic. The mighty Illawarra. How good is this place?
The mighty Illawarra.
The mighty Illawarra.
I like it when you say that. You've been down here for the Illawarra Prayer Breakfast launch this morning.
Yeah, very good. Very exciting what the Lord's doing and emerging in this region. And of course the Illawarra Prayer Breakfast, significant thing. We need some significant events that become catalysts for other things, and certainly we should be gathering in prayer at certain times, that's for sure.
Yes.
So that's great. Awesome time, man.
Awesome. Thanks for coming down and being a part of what God's doing here in the Illawarra. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Rick. I'd love to hear a bit of your story, how you got to know Jesus, and about the things that you're doing now, because it's really exciting. You wear a lot of hats, you're doing a lot of amazing things, but there's a common thread in what you're doing up there in Newcastle. So I'd love to hear about that. But firstly, I want to hear your God story. How did you come to know the Lord?
Yeah, well, we've all probably got a unique story, and look, I wasn't raised in a Christian home, a good home though, and I'm very thankful. Mum and Dad are still together, and we've got a great family. It was in my late teens, Mum started going to church. I didn't really understand that, and then Dad started going, and to be honest, I had a perception that church was old people and boring and hard seats. So that was my perception. And then I thought to myself, oh, that's just what you do when you get old, you just go to church. That was my understanding of it. And then my brother started going to church. It's like, oh, what's going on here? You know, but I was just a typical teenage fellow, as many listeners know, we've got some of the best surf breaks in the world up there in Newey. And so surfing was a big part, and sport was a big part of my world. Anyway, it was one afternoon, my parents caught me with some illegal substances, and Dad was going to take me down to the cop station. Can you believe that? But then he started sharing about the Lord.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, you little beauty, if I just go along with this, I'll be right. And so I did. And look, it probably saved me from going to the cop station, but it probably got me in a whole bunch of other trouble. And so it was in the lounge room, I just go along with Dad just to get out of trouble. I invited the Lord to come into my life. Look, the only thing that changed then was that I did actually go to church on Sunday mornings, and they actually had a cell group in their home. And so, it was difficult to get out of that. So for 12 months, nothing really changed. I mean, I was just, nothing changed. I was just what I was doing. Except those two things happened. And so I probably, for me, when I believe I really come to the Lord, when I really thought, well, Lord, if this is true, the very least I can give you everything, probably took about 12 months. So it was a very divine thing, where things of God and the Holy Spirit. My dad didn't hardly know it. I mean, he was a new believer relatively, and he's said, well, look, here's a Bible, just read a bit. The red writing is really cool, just read that sort of stuff. A little bit of Bible each day is going to help you. That was it.
Yeah.
And it did, and it does. And certainly if you're trying to do the Christian life and you're not reading your Bible, you're not trying to do the Christian, you're just going to fail miserably because there's so many other voices coming into your world. And so that with the work of the Holy Spirit, and so that led from one thing to another to where I am today. Yeah.
Wow. And how many years ago was that?
I was 18 at that time.
18.
Yeah, so that's not many years ago actually.
Yeah, not too long ago.
I've just clocked over 50 actually.
Yeah, awesome.
I know I don't look it, and your listeners can't see that, but I'm looking good for my age, aren't I?
Wow, praise the Lord. Hey, that's a radical testimony. I always say everyone's got a radical testimony. Yeah. We came out of darkness into light, out of death into life. So everyone's got a radical testimony in their own way.
Yeah, well, sometimes, I mean, I think that the Christian faith is about responding. Jesus calls for a response.
Yeah.
But he leaves that response to us as individuals. and he calls us into a deeper place. And so it's not just about going to church. I think it was Keith Green was probably he probably discipled me in his music back in the day.
I love Keith.
And it's just legendary. And I think somewhere he's renowned for saying, look, going to McDonald's doesn't make you a hamburger, like going to church doesn't make you a Christian, you know? You remember, right? And it's so true that the Christian experience has got to become a deep personal thing that bubbles up out of. Yeah. And so you can do the right thing, but you can know about God but not know Him. And so it's been a wonderful experience to know the Lord.
Yeah. So now you're a pastor of a church, and really, I think most of our listeners would know Henki Wajaja, and I would describe you as the Henki Wajaja of Newcastle. Right? You're pastoring a church, you're leading a prayer network, you've got an amazing ministry called Soul Cafe, which I've heard a lot about, and I'd love you to share about. You've also been a part of CityServe in Newcastle, and you're also instrumental in bringing CityServe to the Illawarra, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yep.
All of the things that you're doing have a bit of a common thread, a common theme. But tell us a little bit about your church, about Soul Cafe, and
I never intended to take on a church. I was on staff at my home church in the city in my city in Newcastle for 13 or 14 years through youth and a whole bunch of things. And really, what struck me then was the things of the kingdom. And what does it look like? Because I wasn't raised in the church, so I didn't understand denominationalism. I really had no idea, actually. I thought, what's the go with all this, you know? Largely a lot of that's come out of dysfunction and disagreement and, you know, all sorts of different things. But the diversity of the church is beautiful at the same time. And so I'd resigned from my paid role at church to serve the city. I feel a great sense of calling to my city. And so we lived by faith doing that for many years, and grew a friendship with one of the pastors there, and who was leading Life Church. Good friend, Kev Wilcock, who's been obviously done many things down here.
Yeah. My mother and father-in-law and my wife actually went to Kev Wilcock's church down here. And
so Kev went through some really difficult times. Actually, it was very tragic, and so it started out, can you help me out for a few months? And that was about 5 years ago. So I'm not a full-time employed pastor in a church. It's a couple of days, that'll do.
Yeah.
And that church, it's an inner city church in Newcastle, has a really good, unique ministry to the homeless, the poor, the needy, and the vulnerable. So we would see, hundreds and hundreds of people come through there each week.
Yeah, I've heard about Soul Cafe. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Soul Cafe? Because it is very well known, and it's well known for a reason, because you're doing really great work there. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
Yeah, look, it's just a local grassroots charity. It revolves around a meal, yet our slogan is it's more than a meal. We would refer to it as a convergence of help. We've got about 180, 90 volunteers that come in from the community, which is really unique in some of those sorts of things. We're blessed with great community support, and so the convergence of help and the conversation around the table actually is the real. That's where it's at. And for some of the folk that we work with, that will be their only discussion and conversation that they'll have that week. So it is about placing dignity into those people's lives. We've got a whole myriad of complexities in people that are vulnerable, whether that be mental health and addictions and all sorts of things. And addictions really, you see people in a place of addiction and you don't see the real person. They cause people to become someone they're not. Yeah. And so, we've got a large work around there, and then there's other things with a heap of recovery programs. We've got a mental health nurse on team, there's a doctor's clinic and podiatrist, and I'll fix your backup specialists, and hearing specialists come in, and Centrelink and legal services and haircuts and all those sort of things come in, because it's like when you're, I don't know what it's like for you, Pat, but I've got too many passwords to remember. Or I'm sure some of our listeners might. I mean, it's difficult to navigate. And so when people are in a vulnerable place, whether they're looking for a home, whether they're have some sort of an affliction with mental health illnesses, or loneliness is a big tragedy in our communities, or addictions, the complexity of life, it's difficult. So you can tell someone what to do and where to go, but they're not doing it. And you know what? It's not their fault. And so that convergence of help, we'll just try and fix them up there and then, if we can, or place this help and support right around them there and then. And so that's probably the uniqueness of our model. As well, there's a whole bunch of other services and charitable works that, of course, build into that. But that would be our distinctive in a city. That it's just a great privilege and pleasure to work with people. We use phrases like, "Don't judge people by the chapter of the life that you're reading right here and now," because there's been chapters that have written into their life that have caused this one to come. And our hope is when we enter this chapter of their life, we can help rewrite the next one. And so it's a great privilege that we get to do this, and it's not every church's deal. And I think that's the beauty of the church, is that it doesn't need to be everyone's deal, but the church is actually doing it.
Yeah.
And so it's great. It's awesome, man. Yeah, it's awesome. There's some great pain, great challenges, and the needs are ever increasing in our city. And so we get to do that with great support from our community.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly grateful for what you do. I was an ice addict 17 years ago. I met Jesus and was radically set free from addiction, and my life was transformed, and a lot of it was because of the help of people like yourself. So I really, really appreciate what you do, and it's just awesome to hear what's happening up in Newcastle.
Very good. No, it is. We're excited. Newcastle is one of the greatest cities in the world.
Yeah. The super mighty Newcastle.
I don't know. I mean, people from the Illawarra call it the super mighty Newcastle. I just call it the greatest city in the world. I mean, anyway, it's a great place. You got to love your city.
Yeah, absolutely.
You love your place. If you love your place, you'll pour into it. And I think Jesus had a great affection for geographies and places. And we look back on Jerusalem and wept.
Yeah.
I think Jesus and our Father in heaven has dreams for geographies of what they could be, and there's some beautiful things happening, and the Lord has a very unique, distinct story for the Illawarra.
Yeah.
And that's like we're on a journey in our region. What's the prophetic destiny of our city? What is the unique fingerprint over our region that's distinctively different and sets us apart? Just as individual lives have a unique calling and personality, well, cities do too. And so that's part of our journey. We're trying to discover that with the body of Christ there, so that the church can be the church of the city and function wonderfully well and bring life and hope and healing into our communities.
That's so good. And one of the ways that you've inspired the Illawarra is through CityServe.
Yeah,
we've been doing I don't know how many years we've been doing CityServe down here for though, but it started in Shell Harbour and now Wollongong, but it was inspired by CityServe in Newcastle. Tell us a little bit about how that started and what you guys are doing up there now.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think our cities have rubbed shoulders over many years now. I think it was back in 2000 or 2003, inspired from what happened down here in 2000 when there was a harvest crusade with Greg Laurie.
Yeah.
And so there was some rubbing shoulders, and we ended up having Greg in our city in 03 and then 05 again. And so our entertainment centre, the crowd record is the church.
Wow, that's so amazing.
So there has been a little bit back and forward over the years of what's happened. So in 2012 we worked with Lewis Palau and the Palau Association. And Lewis had an affection and history with our city. Back in the 70s, early 70s, Billy Graham brought Lewis Palau out and really launched him into his evangelistic ministry. Back then it was Billy Graham that gave him $100,000 back in the early 70s because he thought, no, the Lord's got a great calling on your life and you're an evangelist and things. So when he brought him out into Australia, he sent him up to Newcastle. He was doing some things in Sydney. And so the Baptists started some good works then, and had some functions, and invited him back in the early 70s and late 70s. And it's kind of a little bit out of the blue or left field that somebody from our city got in touch with Plough, and they said, oh, well, why don't we entertain a discussion what it might look like. And what we appreciated was that their model wasn't just a festival, but it had in it a unique expression that might have a level of sustainability where the church of the body of Christ goes out in the city. Now, they called it a season of service. And you know what we're like in Australia. It's like, look, can we, I mean, season of service, can we change that name, please?
Yeah.
You know, we just talked to minutes. Look, we're so far away from everyone. If it doesn't work, don't worry about it. No one's going to remember, you know. And so we'd already called the festival City Fest. And so we thought, why don't we just call it City Serve? And now they call it that everywhere around the world.
Yeah.
And so we worked, and we've done a whole bunch of things. And I think it was Shane Cook, actually, from down here, that got in touch. Hey, Rick, what's going on with this? We're doing this. And so it's a collaborative expression that we work with council and community, where we just look to mobilise the church to do a whole bunch of projects. We've done a whole bunch of things over the years, hundreds and hundreds of projects. And it's been a tremendous journey for us. It's very simple. We just look for projects, one-day projects. Some go for a week, some go for 2 weeks. Whatever we can articulate through our local churches in collaboration with others, and we look to go out and be a blessing. We say it's not our platform to preach; it's our bridge to build. And of course, our history in our city is people aren't really too interested in what you've got to say. They really want to see what you're going to do. And so it is about restoring the credibility as well, and we work on a really simple principle of under promise and over deliver. And so we just always try to outstrip what we say we're going to do, and so it's been a great blessing. We've done hundreds of projects in just about every space in Newcastle and Macquarie, actually. And it's been tremendous. It's built great credibility and relationship with civic authorities and everyone in the community. Actually, we're loved everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And so it's a great thrill.
Yeah.
So that was the connection. So I think it was Shane got in touch, and then myself and one of the guys in Newcastle City Council, actually, got a point guy in there. We travelled down and we did a few things down here. And guys, I mean, it's such a simple model. It's wonderful. It's good.
Yeah, it's so great. And the motto of City Serve is transforming a city through service. This morning at the Illawarra Prayer Breakfast, you mentioned pastoring a city. Can you tell us a little bit about that, your heart to pastor a city, and what that means as well?
Yeah, look, I mean, somebody once said that the church is the only organisation in the world that exists for its non-members. But usually when you become a part of something, it's very easy to fall into a vacuum or a space and a place where it just becomes about us. And so there's a great challenge for us, and so I don't feel, of course we've got to pastor people, but the reality is we've got to pastor our cities.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to pastor our civic leaders, and however that looks like, and we need to move into places in our community where we love on and cherish and bless our entire communities. And so I think what the Lord is doing in and around cities right around the world is the church is beginning to get this whole oneness thing, that we are far better together. And so let's try as best we can to stop operating in our own little silo, that this is the big world, when there is a big world we're a part of, and together we can make a significant contribution into our communities. And so I think that's the great challenge for us. What does it look like not to just pastor people? I mean, we should be equipping the saints, of course, so that they begin, we one another, each other. I think the paradigm of the pastor looks after the people, and that's all they do. I mean, it's such a, I'm not sure that paradigm has been tremendously fruitful in the modern day. Now, we're all called to do something for the Lord. And whether you're a stay-at-home mum, whether you're a business person, whether you're a school teacher, doesn't matter. The Lord has a unique calling and gifting upon your life to contribute into the body of Christ.
So true.
And it's probable it's going to be outside the walls of your church and your fellowship that you're in. And so what does it look like for us as believers to be activated as salt and light into the places we're in?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a school teacher, if you're a business person, if you're in a daycare, if you're a stay-at-home mum, if you're in a nursing home, what doesn't matter where you are, the Lord's called you to those places. It's not just some extracurricular activity to your Christian faith. And so what does it look like for us to bring the Lord into those sort of places and collaborate with other Christians within those places? And so I'm not sure that the Lord's too concerned as to what church people go to, as long as he comes into a fellowship that loves the Lord and worships him. The beauty of Jesus' prayer, when the disciples and teachers had to pray, so with our Father. And so it's all about family.
Yeah, so true.
And so if we can think church, we can think family, we're all part of the family of God. And we know what it's like to be dysfunctional in family. Well, let's look and lean into becoming a functioning family of God here in our city.
Yeah, it's so true. One of my favourite sayings is revival looks like family. Like, what are we really welcoming people into? It's one thing to go out in the streets and lead people to the Lord, but what are we welcoming people into? And I truly believe, like, if we can model a healthy family, people are going to want to be a part of that. I know with our youth ministry, we just model family, and people come into it because that's what the youth of our society are crying out for is a healthy family. It's almost like we're pre-wired for it, and so if the church can look less like a building and more like a family, I truly believe we're gonna see our cities and our nation transformed for the gospel.
Look, there's some deep societal challenges and stubborn issues that if that was residing in my home, I'd address it.
So true.
I wouldn't put up with some things that are out in my home, and I won't, because they're detrimental to the health of my family and my home. And so what does that look like in our city as well? To go beyond, so this is Isaiah says, we will be restorers of cities and communities, rebuilders of cities and restorers of communities. And I think heaven on earth looks like beauty.
So true.
Everywhere, beautifully. I mean, the streets will be paved with gold.
Yeah.
It'll be sensational. And so that's why we love CityServe, is because we want the place to look good too.
Yeah, so
we're
true.
painting buildings, we're cleaning this, doing that. It's because we want to love on the place. And I think that is the fullness of heaven on earth, is beauty coming to earth.
Yeah.
And so it's a big deal, but it flows out of family, of course.
Yeah, I love that. I love your heart, Pastor Rick. It's really great to hear, and I just love what you're doing up there in Newcastle, and you really have had an influence on the Illawarra as well through being instrumental in bringing CityServe down here and coming even today and sharing at the Illawarra Prayer Breakfast. It was a really encouraging word. For our listeners, any encouragement that you can send out to the Illawarra and the Shellhaven as well. Many people from the Shellhaven listening in love to just hear an encouragement.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, look, I don't know what your situation you're in, what circumstance you're in, but I do know it is a great day to be alive. And if you're open and your life's open to the love of Jesus, anything is possible. I love that scripture in Ephesians 3:20, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than we ask or imagine, according to what he's worked within us. And so if we open our lives up to the work of the Holy Spirit within us, anything's possible. And look around. If you've got to, if you're in a home, step on a seat and get a bigger perspective. And let's try to have a heavenly perspective. Know that the believers in whatever church you're driving past, we're all part of one family. And I tell you, there's some significant things emerging in this region, and you're a part of it. You're not some insignificant someone on the sideline. No, right now is the right time to hop out of the stands and get on the playing field, because you're needed. You're greatly valued by our Father in heaven. So it's a really precious time. So I want to encourage you, wherever you're at, engage in something, engage with people, engage with other believers, and begin to petition and pray and get the sense of the Father's heart for your region, I tell you, anything's possible. Anything.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's wonderful being with you, Pat, in the mighty Illawarra and Shoalhaven region. How good is this place? This is magnificent.
It is. It's a beautiful place, and we're just so thankful for you coming in and joining us. You're on Pulse 94.1, speaking life through word and song.